The film opens with three men hunting in the woods. One of them, Dale, leaves his friends to pursue an animal. Dale soon finds the animal and prepares to shoot. Suddenly, a large bald man approaches and throws Dale over a cliff, killing him. Ryan Varrett, a former officer, seeks vengeance after his family was murdered several years ago. Dale was one of the killers. After shooting Dale, Ryan heads to Hope, a little village. This town is run by a ruthless biker gang, and even the sheriff is afraid of them. Ryan is aware of this, but he continues to go to the town. In Hope, Ryan stops at a petrol station to get some supplies and inquires about where he may stay. The owner, Kirby, tells him about the town's lone motel. Darcy, a young lady, runs the motel, and there are no tourists because people shun Hope. Darcy is startled Ryan would come to town, but he claims he has business there. Meanwhile, Frank, an FBI special agent, is planning with his squad to apprehend Dale, who is also a rapist. While they are conversing, another agent enters and informs them that Dale has been found dead. The scene then flashes back to Ryan's time as a cop. He was at a party with his family and friends when a group of crooks showed up and began shooting at everyone, including Ryan and his family. Drayke Santiago, the attacker's commander, did this because he disliked the cops who had previously imprisoned him. He wanted vengeance by murdering the cops and their families. Ryan was one of his targets, but he somehow managed to survive. In the present, Ryan is driving around town when he notices some bikes parked in front of a building. A member of the biker gang walks out and becomes enraged because a dog is barking at him. He takes out his rifle and shoots the dog. Just as he is about to shoot, Ryan stops him and beats him up. Ryan's disturbance attracts the attention of the gang members inside, who come out to see what's going on. Drayke, the gang's leader, is present and identifiable. Drayke doesn't remember Ryan's face, which seems logical given how many people he has slain. Even though Ryan has beaten up one of his men, Drayke decides to let him go because he has more important things to do. Drayke remains skeptical about Ryan, so he instructs his younger brother, Rexo, to keep an eye on the bald man. The next day, Rexo approached Drayke to inform him that a club owner had refused to pay the security charge. Angered, Drayke challenged the club owner to a one-round boxing bout. He vowed that if the man won, he would never charge the security money again. Drayke, despite his advanced age, was still a formidable opponent. Drayke decided to let the man go because he still wanted his money and the man couldn't pay him if he died. Drayke and his crew made money in a variety of ways. Aside from monitoring the meth lab, he had to keep an eye on Ryan. That night, Rexo went to Darcy's motel to see if a large bald man named Ryan was present. Darcy refused to respond, so Rexo threatened her. He threatened to send her to hell if she did not tell him where Ryan was. Ryan was at the motel and heard Rexo threaten Darcy. He halted Rexo in the only manner he knew how, through violence. Darcy alerted Ryan that Rexo was Drayke, the gang leader's younger brother, after he saw him being beaten. Drayke would seek vengeance if he discovered his sibling had been harmed. Ryan didn't care. He led Rexo to the front of the gang's lab and tied him to a car. Then he allowed the car to drive into the laboratory, causing it to explode. The explosion killed Rexo, destroyed the lab, and made Ryan happy. Drayke and the gang were quick to spot the explosion and race to the lab, but they could only watch the flames. Drayke was enraged when he discovered his sibling had died. Not long later, the sheriff and one of his deputies arrived to investigate what had occurred. Drayke and his crew were still present when Drayke noticed the sheriff. He approached him and threatened him. He threatened to kill the sheriff's family if he attempted to interfere. The sheriff was too terrified to dispute with Drayke. He believed that by allowing the gang to do whatever they wanted, he could prevent further violence in the community. The next day, Ryan attacked a gang's truck transporting meth to another city. He followed the truck discreetly, then punctured its tire, forcing the driver to exit. When the driver exited the vehicle, Ryan attacked him and banged his skull on the door. He then blew up the truck. A gang member witnessed the explosion and reported it to Drayke. Drayke was furious because the vehicle had a large quantity of meth, and he had lost a significant amount of money. He wanted to find out who did this, and he assumed it was Ryan. To find out, Drayke directed his men to transport Kirby to their base. He begged Kirby for assistance in investigating Ryan and determining his identity. If Ryan was guilty, Drayke would murder him. Kirby was terrified and had no choice but to comply. That same day, Kirby began an investigation into Ryan. He investigated Ryan's car, which was parked near the motel, in the hopes of learning more about him. Ryan came out of the motel and caught him as he looked in the car. Kirby, feeling uneasy, invited Ryan to drink in his house, which was close to the motel. Ryan, however, was not foolish. When they arrived at Kirby's residence, Ryan inquired about why he had searched his car. Kirby said that Drayke had told him to find out about Ryan. Just as Kirby finished speaking, they heard a motorcycle halt outside. Crab, one of Drayke's soldiers, approached Ryan and challenged him. Their fight was brief. Ryan defeated Crab, but let him go. Meanwhile, Drayke conducted an investigation by speaking with the sheriff. Drayke discovered throughout their talk that Ryan was an ex-cop who quit when his family was murdered. Drayke thanked the sheriff for the information and handed him some money. Later that night, Drayke and his men went to Kirby's residence while he was sleeping. Drayke was unhappy that Kirby was unable to locate information about Ryan. Drayke punished Crab by ordering him to kill Kirby. Ryan learned about Kirby's death the next morning. Ryan knew Drayke's crew had killed Kirby, so he went to one of Drayke's clubs and beat up all of the gang members. After that, he kidnapped Crab and placed him in his car's trunk. Then he killed Crab and put his body in front of the gang's headquarters. Drayke was furious to see his favorite man die. He directed all of his surviving troops to gather and prepare their weapons in order to track down Ryan. Later that night, Darcy heard unusual noises outside the motel. She stood up from the couch and grabbed her shotgun, ready to blast whoever had broken in. Ryan, assuming it was his adversaries, instructed Darcy to take cover behind the reception desk. Moments later, the front door slowly opened, allowing Drayke's men inside. Ryan waited until everyone was close. When they were within reach, he instructed Darcy to turn out the lights. Gunshots rang out as total darkness fell over the room. When Darcy put the lights back on, she discovered that all of the gang members had died. Ryan miraculously survived unscathed. Ryan felt the location was dangerous, so he took Darcy away. Unfortunately, he had no idea his adversaries were waiting outside. They surprised Ryan and beat him until he passed out. Ryan awoke to see Drayke, and he and Darcy were transported to the gang headquarters. Ryan's arms were bound to a chair, and he couldn't move. Drayke stated that he would kill both Ryan and Darcy, but first he would injure Darcy. Drayke instructed one of his men to torture Ryan while he walked into the back room. The tough guy began beating Ryan and enjoyed it. Ryan suddenly loosened the cords around his arms and fought back, knocking out the tough guy. Ryan then looked for Darcy on the ship, which served as the gang's base. He discovered Drayke's soldiers, who attempted to attack him, but Ryan was too strong. Ryan discovered Darcy, who was tied up and had her mouth taped shut. He unfastened her, and they searched for a way off the ship. But Drayke would not let them go. Ryan felt it was time for the ultimate fight, so he asked Darcy to leave while he faced Drayke. Prior to the fight, Drayke identified Ryan as the cop whose family he had murdered. He believed Ryan had died. Following this, their duel began. The two fought hard, but Ryan was stronger and knocked Drayke down. Just when Ryan felt he had won, Drayke stood up and grabbed a knife, attempting to attack him from behind. Fortunately, Agent Frank from the FBI came just in time and shot Drayke before he could harm Ryan. The FBI had arrived to hope to stop Drayke's gang, which had been harassing the residents. Frank chose not to arrest Ryan because he felt the police still needed someone like him. Ryan then departed town, vowing to meet Frank again someday. At the end of the film, Ryan is seen raiding a location and shooting at a group of people. These are Drayke's remaining pals who participated in the murder of Ryan's family. Ryan has come to kill them. So the lesson of the story is that if you're going to take on a whole gang by yourself, make sure you're a former cop with a genuine vendetta and a talent for making explosives become your personal hallmark move.